Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is 7:01, and we are set to begin this webinar. Okay, I'll give 2 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us again today. I will just share my screen. Please give me a minute to do that. And here we are. I hope you can see my screen. Beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you on board. So today we're going to be talking about the parent-adolescent relationship matrix. And if you recall, from the very first webinar, when we spoke about the defiant teenager, one of the things I had mentioned was the P.A.R.M, the parent-adolescent relationship matrix. And we are going to revisit that particular story in this webinar. So in the last webinar, where we spoke about the AHA pathway, or to a guilt-free and blame-free parenting, I had mentioned that we're going to be talking about P.A.R.M as well today. And here we are. So what is P.A.R.M? In psychology, there's the concept of the ecological systems of child development. Okay. All right. So okay. So we spoke about the exactly. Here we are. Jesus Christ. Shit. Let me find out. Good. Sorry about that. Okay, welcome to Parent-Adolescent Relationship Matrix P.A.R.M with T-Bog. Thank you so much for joining us today. At the first webinar, where we spoke about how well do you know your adolescent, one of the scenarios we delved into was that of the defiant teenager. And when we dissected that, one of the things I had mentioned was that in the coming days, we're going to look at the parent-adolescent relationship matrix, because the root cause of defiance in that particular teenager's story we saw was contingent on a misunderstanding in this matrix, right? And in the last webinar, where we spoke about the AHA pathway to a blame-free and guilt-free parenting, I also mentioned that this was something we were going to dissect today, and here we are. Okay, so In psychology, there's something called the ecological systems theory of child development. The ecological systems theory of child development. And on your screen, you will see a concentric circle showing the five systems: the microsystem, the mesosystem, the chronosystem. Yeah, the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem, the five systems. The parent-adolescent relationship matrix will be focused purely on the microsystem. Now, these five systems have important roles in the life of the child, but as you can see on the screen, the microsystem has the most influence on the child. Now, in the microsystem, you see seven specific listings there, seven specific interactions a child will have, and that's a child with a family, with health services, religious organization, daycare facility, neighborhood playground, peers, school. This webinar will focus on the child and family. As you well know, we have a course on ground called the Engaging the World of Adolescents. It introduces you to the adolescent ecosystem where all of these things are catered to. You get to meet your collaborators and your competitors, right? So for this webinar, we are going to be laser focusing on the parent-child, the parent-adolescent relationship matrix. Let's go on. All right, so on your screen, you can see the matrix. There are three major categories in this Venn diagram. The blue circle speaks about the adolescent. Our course, Engaging the World of Adolescents, breaks everything down for you in totality as to everything you need to know about the adolescent. The yellow circle talks about the mother relationship, while the pink circle speaks about the father. Now, these circles are here to let you know that before we get into the parent-adolescent relationship matrix, it's important that these entities are understood on their own, because it's in the wholeness, the a well-rounded development in the dimensions of wellness for each of these categories of persons that will determine how strengthened the bond in the parent-adolescent relationship will be. So the deep blue circle, you can see in between, I hope it's visible, yeah, in between the blue circle that signifies the adolescent and the pink circle that signifies the father, you see a deep blue shading, and that's showing the father-adolescent relationship, and that is crucial. Like I said earlier, it's important first that the father understands his role as a father, right? And one major role that fatherhood entails is appropriately communicating manhood to your son. So if as a father you've not understood what manhood is, it might be difficult for you to accurately communicate such to your male child. So this deep blue speaks about the father-adolescent relationship. This green here between the blue circle and the white circle speaks about the mother-adolescent relationship, right? This pink circle and this yellow circle speaks about the relationship between father and mother, which is crucial because before the adolescent comes into the mix, there must already have been a deep bond between father and mother, right? And then you see this black here. That's the goal. That's the goal in parenting, where there's a fusion of all of these dimensions of relationship into something beautiful. And that's the journey we'll be taking today. This particular slide just shows you all of what we'll be discussing today. So let's begin with the father-adolescent relationship. And that will be the father-son. We're going to start with the father-son relationship. In the father-adolescent relationship, we're going to look at the father-son and the father-daughter. The relationship dynamics for both is slightly different, and it's important we know what this relationship dynamics entail. So, the father-son relationship. Here's a story. When I was 11, my family moved to a new city, and I hated it. I didn't like our new house, my new school, or the kids in our new neighborhood. Every day I went to school, I just wanted to leave and fly back to my old town. So I used to fake like I was sick so that I'd be sent home. After several days of this, my dad came to school and met me in the nurse's office. He talked about how he knew it was hard, but asked me to give it a try. I felt like I was no longer alone in the struggle. His presence was all I needed to change my attitude. Now, this looks so simple, and a question I would easily get is, this is something the mother could have done. What makes it special? What makes it specific to the man? You are very right. This is something even a mother could have done. But I'm going to explain how the import of this is different using another scenario. So, as females, let's assume you walk into a restaurant and you alone, your spouse isn't with you. You walk into this restaurant and someone comes to tap you to tell you, oh, madam, you are stained. Who would you rather have speak to you about that kind of issue? A man or a woman? Now, for the men, you walk into a restaurant with your zippers down, and then someone taps you, sir, your zippers are down. Who would you rather speak to you about it? A man or a woman, right? So when it comes to certain emotional scenarios, there's a bonding that occurs when the father steps in, and you will see how that occurs. So why is this important? Your son watches how you love his mother. Let's begin with that. How you treat his mother, he watches it. Now, one of the things psychologists will tell you is that the best gift you can give a child, either male or female, is to love his mother, right? Now, specific to the male, when a male child, a male adolescent, when he sees how you love his mother, you are communicating how to treat a woman to him. First, you are giving him an emotional jurisdiction of safety. I always tell fathers that the power you wield over your male son, you have no idea. Male sons love their mothers, and when we get to the mother-son relationship, you'll see how that plays out. But the the growing into a man, it's why I said at the beginning that for fathers to truly father a son, they must have understood what it means first to be a man. I mean, before you're a father, you're first a man, right? After you become a man, you step into fatherhood, right? So this notion of manhood, your son learns it from you. And the first way he learns it from you is exactly what you do to his mother. How you love his mother is crucial to your relationship with your son. He watches how you deal with failure and success. And this is crucial because we live in a society where men are not allowed to express emotions. Men are not allowed to fail. You're only allowed to succeed. And when you succeed, it's usually an ego trip, right? So your son watches you. How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with success? It's not particularly in what you tell him, it's in what you do. And I'm sure by now you understand that your adolescents, especially, they don't imitate you by what you say, they imitate you by what you do. So if you say something and you're not doing it, your child is most likely going to do what you do, even if they don't want to do it. And I'll explain the psychological basis for that. Right? So the second importance of this father-son relationship is that your son watches exactly how you deal with failure and success. Society already, society has an unwritten code of conduct for how males deal with failure and success. Your ability to accurately communicate how to behave under both circumstances, it will determine how well your son will fare. This is something that will be learned, that the male child will most likely learn better from the father than from the mother. And when we get to the mother-son relationship, you'll understand what I mean by this. Also, your son emulates your servant leadership, and this is crucial because as men, again, society plays on our ego, on your ego as a man, to be arrogant in leadership. Most men, or many men, have not understood the art of becoming servant leaders. And what do I mean by servant leaders? If you recall in our last webinar, when we spoke about the AHA pathway, the first A was authority and the second was altruism. And I showed you how the power you wield when you own and understand your authority, yet in spite of your authority, you still get off your high horse to relate in a language that your child understands. That is a beauty, right? So one of the major importance of the father-son relationship is that he learns from you servant leadership. This is something he learns from you as a father. He emulates it. And why this is crucial again is because when the father is absent and it's just the mother, when the mother females are naturally inclined to display servant leadership, except now in more recent cases where women are being pushed to become really aggressive and arrogant just to compete with their male counterparts, and that's a completely different thing. But by default, women are wired to be servant leaders, and you see it in the global space, how women are competent in what they do, but because of the emotional strength they also have, it helps play this out. So when a man is the one teaching his son the art of servant leadership, he doesn't see it as he being emasculated. Instead, he sees that if my dad does this, it means this is right, it means this is what men should do. Yeah, you also build his self-esteem. I mean, this is crucial, and when we go further down the slide, you'll understand why this is important. The male child, his self-esteem is mostly built from his relationship with his father over his mother, and this is research based. And how do you build his self-esteem? First, by being present. A lot of fathers have, well, unintentionally or intentionally, pushed parenting to the mothers. I mean, because mothers are wired to, give birth to the child and all, the office of nurturing has been handed to the mother. So the father is rarely present. One of the ways you can build your son's self-esteem is to be present in his life. Let him know that you are present. You are interested in his life. You are interested in what is going on with him. You're not just the one who when you come in, he's to run away from. No, he knows you are present, you're involved in his life. And then you build his self-esteem again by loving him regardless of his choice. I mean, I have encountered a number of male adolescents who are still looking for ways to just feel loved by their fathers. This is a gaping hole you are living in your son's life if you're not doing this as a father. As a father, he should know, yes, when he makes mistakes, yes, he should know that these are mistakes you've made. But loving him regardless of his choices is a gift you'll be giving him in building his self-esteem. It's non-negotiable. It's a gift you give to him. And then you build his self-esteem by affirming him. Again, I mentioned that a lot of adolescent males are looking for ways to feel loved, feel important, feel affirmed. I mean, your words of affirmation as a man, not as a woman now, as a man, as a father, it goes a lot. It goes a very, very, very long way in your son's life. Of course, many mothers affirm. So the internet connection. I hope you can still hear me. Okay. So many mothers already affirm, but hearing it from a father, father to son, it's like this man to man bonding. Affirming him, you are building his self-esteem in an incredible way. He's not going to look for a girlfriend to massage his ego, or to look for someone to oppress to massage his ego. Because you are affirming him, you are building him into a young man to be looked up to, right? And then you discipline in love as well. That's one of the ways to build self-esteem. And one of the major reasons I added this is because in Africa, I truly don't understand why this is so. I'm still trying to do research on why this is so, or who started this concept of ensuring the men are the ones who disciplines while the mothers are the ones who, nurture. I know it's not the same in all families, but I tell you, in almost 90%, I mean, a friend of mine conducted a survey. He just put up something on his Instagram status and was asking how many of you would love to marry a man that's like your father. And my goodness, it was scary how women were responding, males themselves were responding. And in looking through, one of the consistent things they always saying was, my father does not listen, he feels he's always right. I don't understand or why men have taken up the role of being the disciplinarian while the mothers have taken up the roles of being the nurturer. Maybe it's because of biology, but I tell you that when you discipline your son, if you've taken up that role and that's what you have agreed with your wife to do, when you're disciplining him, ensure it's done in love. Ensure that at the end of this, he still knows that you are present, you love him regardless of his choice, you're affirming him, and you love him. It's crucial. A lot of men have not mastered the art of communicating their emotions. Society has said that a man who communicates his emotions is weak, is a woman. That's a very wrong concept, research proven, psychology based, everything based. It is absolutely wrong to ever think that way, that showing your emotion is a sign of weakness. No, that's a sign of strength. I see Super Ninja. I discipline more because I'm the one at home most hours of the day. Oh my goodness. So this is action points for the father-son relationship. So father-son, if a father here, this is a question I expect you to always ask yourself to know if you're on track. Does my son know that he matters to me? If your answer is no, then you have work to do. If you take our course, Engaging the World of Adolescents, you will see exactly how to infiltrate his world. So if your answer is no, you genuinely have work to do, because we need more boys to grow into kings. I mean, society is spending a lot of time building queens, but we're not raising kings. So when we have queens all over the place, who will marry these queens? Boys we've not raised. So I need a lot of fathers to step up. I need you to answer this question. Does my son know that he matters to me? If your answer is no, you have work to do. Does my son know that I love him? If your answer is no, you still have a lot of work to do. Does my son know that what he does is important to me? Oh my goodness, this is another major area that there's a rift between the father and the son. Sometimes, I recall it, there was a story I shared on Father's Day to everyone on our mailing list, and it was the true life story of someone called Solomon Bucci. And he explained how his father wanted him to go into a particular kind of trading, but he didn't want to. He wanted to go into writing, he wanted to do the creatives. And his father was saying to him, I mean, how do you want to put food on your table? And it really caused a major clash between them that he had to move out. The father belittled him, and the father told him that when you're done exploring this, you're going to come back to me. Well, fortunately, he is flourishing, and now he and his father, they've mended relations, they've mended their relationship. But one of the things this did to that boy was to give him anxiety disorder. He began to see therapists, began to take anxiety meds. This is how devastating a breakdown in the father-son relationship can be. And then, does my son know how proud I am of him? You see, these 4 questions, all should be yes. If 1 out of 4 is not a yes, that's you get 3/4. You have 3 yeses and just 1 no. You still have work to do. All 4 boxes must be ticked, because that is how you raise men who will exhibit all the traits of a wholesome adult, of a true man. So this is something to ponder for the father. What is your favorite father-son activity? That's my assignment to every father here. What's your favorite father-son activity? If you don't have one, you have to develop one. This is how you begin the journey. Yeah. Depending the time you take the course, start with this. Find out what is this activity that we can both do, we both enjoy, and use that to begin engaging your son positively. Now, here's a true story. My father was a successful clothing salesman who worked a lot. But even when he was home on weekends, he wasn't available. All my life, I've suffered from uncertainties about my masculinity. I think it's because he never shared anything about himself with me. He didn't tell me what kinds of problems he wrestled with, what he felt, or what it meant to him to be a man. I've had to make it all up for myself, and I'm never sure I got it right. This is a true story. The problem with this kind of living is that this boy will grow into a man who is uncertain about what it means to be a man. You see what I'm saying? You truly cannot give what you don't have. So until you engage the father-son dynamics in the parent-adolescent relationship is not negotiable. Yes, there's the role of the parents, that's the father and mother to this son, but there's the specific role of the father and son, where you both can take yourself out, you take your son out, have man-to-man conversations. I recall the story of a mentor of mine who his first son, one day called him into the room, said, come here. He locked the door and he stripped naked and told his son to do the same. When they both did, he asked the son, is there anything on me that you don't have? The son said no. He said, now that you know that we are one and same, I've only lived longer than you are, you can come to me. I mean, that is one art of vulnerability. Not many men are vulnerable. Vulnerability, as you will see if you've taken the course or you're planning to take it, vulnerability is one of the major weapons you can use in parenting in the 21st century, right? It is strength masquerading in weakness. Vulnerability is powerful, but that's just one of the many tools you can use, because if all you are is vulnerable and you do not have the other tools to back it up, you will place yourself in a very precarious situation, right? So that's that about father-son, the father-son dynamic. I'm trying to hurry so that we can have enough time for questions. Right now, the father-daughter relationship. Here's another story. Blessing is a 15-year-old in her first year in the university. She's struggling with anorexia and cutting. Now, anorexia is it's a medical condition where, and also a psychological condition where females mostly are the ones who do this, where they eat and then they go secretly to throw up because they are trying to watch their weight. Now, why this is a problem is that they never get to keep anything in their system because they're obsessed with keeping a particular kind of weight. They begin to lose weight. They can't keep anything under. They are extremely sensitive about how they look, and also it's a major problem, and it mostly occurs with girls. Now, cutting is also another way, also a psychological problem. Cutting is where you are emotionally distraught, and the only way you feel you can calm your nerves is to cut, to create physical pain. So you're using the physical pain as a diversion from the emotional pain. That is also a major problem, because in cutting, you can mistakenly cut a vein or a major artery and bleed to death. It has happened over and over again. So this is something Blessing is struggling with, right? Now, she and her father are caught in a vicious cycle of control. He attempts to manage her by reminding her to take her antidepressant medication. That's what's used to treat this psychological condition. Now, Blessing responds by lashing out, right? And she does this in two ways. She either becomes silent and just, pretends as if she didn't hear him, or she begins to scream, lash out, and all. Now, the father would either make sarcastic comments at her, the way African parents would do. That's why you are the way you are. Why won't you be doing this when you are this? Those kind of things. So he either does that or he slaps her, just all of that, and then storms off in frustration. Now, Blessing's mother, Mrs. E, is usually uncomfortable when father and mother are speaking. Now, as you have seen in the first paragraph, daughter and father have issues in their relationship. Mother becomes the bridge. Unfortunately, what this has done is that Blessing does not learn to expressly communicate to her father, and then she's using her mother in a very unconstructive way, a very, very, very bad way. What this is a typical relationship in, maybe I would say, Nigeria, since I don't know how all of Africa is. But this is usually a typical father-daughter relationship. Of course, there are daddy's girls, a lot of daddy's girls out there, but there are way more father-daughter crises than daddy's girls out there. How does this play out? What is the importance of the father-daughter relationship, and how damaging is this particular scenario with Blessing and her father? So let's first talk about the importance of the father-daughter relationship. One of the major importance of the father-daughter relationship is the simple fact that in your being involved in her life, you show her what to expect of a man. Yeah? When a father is involved in his daughter's life, as females are way more emotional, if I should borrow that. And by emotional, I mean females express more. Many females, not all, many females are way more expressive in their emotions than males, right? So when a father is involved in the daughter's life, actively involved, not the toxic kind of involvement between Blessing and her father, actively involved, daughter understands what kind of man, right, is good for her. Whenever there's a father-daughter crisis, many times daughters begin to look for fatherly love in other men. Unfortunately, because this is adolescents we're talking about, adolescent males as well are still trying to find themselves. If you've gone through the course, you will know that the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for logical thinking, is really not developed until about age 25, right? And then I'm sure you must have had a lot of people say that the females develop faster than the men and all. So when you have an 18-year-old girl and an 18-year-old male, many times, emotionally, psychologically, and all, the 18-year-old female is actually older than the 18-year-old male. So now, there's a problem with the father-daughter, using Blessing's example. When Blessing goes out, Blessing is going to look for a man, a boy, an adolescent, somebody who can fill in that void. And because this is a father-daughter relationship, a father-daughter love missing, nobody on the outside can feel it other than a father. Now, unless an adolescent, a male, has been properly groomed in the art of being a man, except that occurs, Blessing is going to meet a fellow child who will further complicate her life, adding more pain to the pain she's experiencing from her father. That's one of the major issues that happens with females who have problems in their relationship with their dads. So in your being involved, she understands what to expect from a man. She understands what a healthy marriage is when you demonstrate a healthy marriage. She sees how you treat her mother. She knows what to expect from a man in marriage. When you support her, you help her see through your eyes on what manhood entails. Now, this is also important for her because when she becomes a woman, a mother, a wife, she's going to understand certain things her spouse will do from your own perspective because you have been involved and you've been supportive. She has started to see things through your eyes. That's one of the major importance of the father-daughter relationship as well. Yeah. She also needs to trust you as a confidant. And how does this play out in her life? In trusting you as a confidant, she's learning how to trust the opposite sex. You are an embodiment of her future. You are her current reality of her future. If I will sum up everything here, you are her current reality. You are an example of what her future is to look like. So the quality of relationship she has with you is what will determine the quality of relationship she most likely will have with her spouse. And if it's a negative relationship she has with you, unless there's an interception of a collaborator, and you'll understand collaborator in the course. The collaborator is anything or anyone who supports you in your role of communicating values to your child. Now, sometimes parents fail in the art of communicating values. We all know that communication of values and all of that begins at home. But there are times where parents fail in that. Collaborators come in to step into the office of the parent. So unless someone comes in to step into that office to bridge that gap and cut off that cycle you are creating, she's going to replicate what she's seeing in your life in her own life when she has a spouse, right? She needs your unconditional love. It's from you she first learns how to properly love a man. She cannot learn this from her mother. From her mother, as you will see later, what she's going to learn is how to be a recipient of that love. But on knowing what true love is, she learns it from you first as a father. Yeah. She also needs a strong spiritual leader because it's from you she's going to know what it means to have a covering. If she doesn't see that in you, she's most likely going to fall into the trap of many men until she finally understands what it means to have a proper spiritual leader. And I can say this categorically because I had a major problem with this particular point. Yeah. So in the father-daughter relationship, she needs a strong spiritual leader because it's on the wings of what you have projected to her. She's going to look at other men through that lens. And then she needs in you a positive role model. That just sums up everything there. You are an embodiment of her future. You are a representation of what it is her future man will look like. It's often joked, but funny enough, it's true, but it's often in jokes that many women marry their kind of father. We joke about it, but when you dig into it, you find out that there are many deep-rooted traits that the father embodies, and you find them in the husband, in the boyfriend, in the partner of the female, right? So in terms of her romantic life, especially, you are her example. And then research also suggests that daughters who have secure and loving relationships with their fathers are more assertive without being aggressive. And this is utmost importance. If the father is missing to project or and strengthen her assertiveness, right? If that part of her is missing, she's going to see how so let's assume the father is absent, the mother is having to do everything alone. She's going to see how weighed down her mother is. She's going to want to ensure that she never becomes that weak. In wanting not to become that weak, she's going to become aggressive, because there's no man to balance it out for her when growing up. And I'm very specific about this, because when growing up, when it's the father showing her the difference between being aggressive and being assertive, she learns it better. When it's a man on the outside, just a random person trying to make that correction, it's going to look like you are trying to subjugate her or make her subservient. Yeah, this is why for me, this is one of the things I say, is one of the reasons I believe that feminism is going gaga. I completely support the fact that women should not be subservient, but the way and manner it's currently tilting is scary. Women are becoming extremely aggressive, arrogant, proud, rude, but trying to nickname it as assertive. And beautiful enough, the chairwomen of the feminism gang, Chimamanda, has really spoken about this. The father-daughter helps to ensure that the daughter knows exactly what she wants. She's bold enough to express herself, but she does it without aggression, without pride, without arrogance. That's one of the major importance of the father-daughter relationship. Now, this is also an action point for fathers. Please take your daughter out on dates. You're wondering how or why. It's important. In our current dispensation, we find that one of the ways guys woo girls in the university, for example, is getting her in Unilag. They'll tell you it's chicken and cheese. In Yabatech, they'll tell you it's Indomie. You know, different schools have their different peculiarities. But when you take your daughter out on dates, first you show her how a man should treat her. Second, you make all of those things less enticing to her. So where some other person will find going out as something to tick, oh, this guy has taken me out, he's a good guy and all, it doesn't trip your daughter. Your daughter is not moved, because this is something she does with her father. She's used to it. So a man or a guy who would go out with her or want to take her out is someone who would also himself have been grounded by another father, right? So take your daughter out on dates, go out, have father-daughter timeouts, have conversations with her on the male perspectives of dating. Our mothers are doing an amazing job, but we need fathers to step up in this regard. Because when she hears from you how men think, right? When she's in a dilemma with a male in her relationship, you will be her go-to person, because she's going to ask you, so dad, what do you think? How do you think he's viewing this? Do you understand this? In building this right now, and one of the things I need to mention is that sometimes when you are doing these things now, in this present time, it might look like you're not seeing any benefit. It might look like you're wasting your time. But I assure you, as soon as that phase of adolescence is crossed, you will realize that you have built a very solid foundation and nothing will shake it. Adolescence is usually that shaky period, but that's where if you've missed building a foundation during childhood, that's your next best opportunity to really, really build solid foundations, right? So these are the two assignments I'm giving fathers. Take your daughter out on dates. Yeah, she needs to go out on dates with you where you have personal conversations. And when you take the course, you'll see some of the kinds of conversations you should be having with her. Have conversations with her on the male perspectives of dating. It's crucial, it's very, very important. If you were a playboy, let her know and tell her the tactics you used so that she can pick them from afar. Let her see in you how a man should treat her by how you treat your mother, their mother as well. That's also very important. The way you treat her mother is how in you, like I said earlier, in you, she sees an embodiment of what she can receive, what she's to expect, what she's to accept. Yeah. So that's that for the father-adolescent relationship nugget points. Yeah. The next part is the father and the mother-adolescent relationship, and this green spot here, that's what we are looking at. You can see the blue part, the adolescent, the mother, and then their relationship. Very important. So if you were with me in the first webinar, then you recall this story. My 15-year-old son bullies me, shouts at me, swears, calls me names, pushes me, grabs me, and continually and consistently defies me. I have a good man as my husband, but we have come to a difficult situation. We blame each other, and I feel and tell him that I'm not supported by him. I feel at such a low and don't know what to do. I have two other children who respond normally with me. I've been to my doctor, but he didn't help. He told me he should be thrown out of the house. He's my son, and I can see he's struggling. I want to reach out to him, but he won't let me near. He kicks me off his bed if I sit on it. He pushes me forcibly out of his room or his way. Please, who can help me? I've broken down in front of my parents and my in-laws, but no one helps. What do I do? In that webinar, I mentioned the parent-adolescent relationship matrix, but I mentioned that I was going to revisit it here and talk about it in detail. So based on what we've discussed so far, okay, maybe before I share my thoughts, does anyone want to speak about this? Uh, does anyone want to speak about this particular story? Let me just pause to take comments on this. Or some who were the first webinar, well, you already knew what I said. But if you weren't there, does anyone want to speak about this? Anyone? You can just raise your hand or put it in the chat box. I could just continue. Okay, I'll be checking the chat box, but so far, let's use what we've learned to dissect this. The first line, my 15-year-old son bullies me. Now, if we go back to the very first slide, let me see if I can go back there, where I showed you the three circles, the adolescent. Let's look at the adolescent himself. If a 15-year-old is bullying, that suggests that there is a problem with this adolescent. There's an emotional void, an emotional turbulence he's currently going through. And the only way he knows to express himself is to project it to whomever he feels is the cause of it. And obviously, in this particular situation, he believes his mother is the cause, so he's projecting it to her. Following the first webinar, in responding to a question, one of the videos I released was titled, "What if I told you that defiance is just a cry for help?" Now, like I said earlier, the adolescent brain is immature. And by immature, I'm not saying it's small. I'm saying many of the synapses, the connections in the brain, they're not properly aligned, right? So the back of the brain is, there's a portion there called the amygdala. It's the seat of emotions. In the amygdala controls how your adolescent behaves. So they act a lot of times, especially under pressure, without thinking. That's the amygdala. In adults, the prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain, is what's responsible for logical thinking. It's why an adult will process things through before acting out. Although sometimes we allow our amygdala rule us. But imagine having those periods where the amygdala is in control rather than the prefrontal cortex. Whereas for the adolescent, the amygdala is usually mostly in control. So when a 15-year-old, based on this story, is shouting, swearing, abusing his mom, being this violent, first, there's a problem with this adolescent, right? And it needs to be analyzed, but I won't be doing that here. The course already handles that. The second part, the second sentence, I have a good man as my husband, but we have come to a difficult situation. We blame each other, and I feel and tell him I'm not supported by him. There's a problem with the mother-father relationship, right? Now, if you recall what I showed you, let me go back to the very first slide to show you the diagram all over again. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So if you recall this particular diagram, I showed you that this is the goal. This black spot, that's the goal, the parent-adolescent relationship matrix. However, to get to that black spot, each of these relationships must be yes, this must be properly groomed. So the first relationship to be groomed, the father on his own, I mean, before you become a father, you're a man. So the man on his own must have been groomed into becoming a man. The mother, as a woman, must have been groomed into becoming a woman. The adolescent must be, okay, before we get to the adolescent. So you see, these two people, that's the father and mother, are separate entities on their own, wholesome people who come together to form this red spot. It is from the strength of this red spot that they birth a child, this blue spot, right? So together, they must work with this child. When there is a lack of synergy between these two, this blue spot, this child will definitely feel it. Okay, the chart. A good man may not necessarily, exactly, a good man or a good husband may not necessarily be a good father. Exactly. But it starts from here, becoming a good man first. The art of fatherhood is a completely different conversation, but you cannot necessarily be a good father if you're not a good man first. That's the beginning. So when the father, mother are not in
Yes.
sync, this child will suffer it.
My bathroom. Soap water.
Is someone saying something?
The water I use in washing is in my.
Okay, sorry about that. He's been muted. So when there's a breakdown, so in our story, we see a breakdown between the communication, a breakdown in communication between father and mother. There's no longer a support system between both of them. They are beginning to argue between themselves. They no longer are on the same page. This person suffers it. For the parent-adolescent relationship matrix to work, the parents must be in sync first. It is on the strength of this red portion, it is on the strength of this synchrony that they parent this child together. So let me go back to the slides where we are. Okay. Okay. All right. So we blame each other. You see that? There's a problem between father and mother. Now, I have two other children who respond normally with me. Now, at the end of the slide, this is something we'll also talk about. After having a personal relationship with father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter, there's also relationship between parent, that's their coming together, and the coming together of the children. That's also crucial. So I have two other children who respond normally with me. Yeah. I've been to a doctor, he's my son, and all. So first and foremost, this defiance is a product of the lack of synchrony between father and mother. And then there's a lack of synchrony between mother and son. So what is the importance of the mother-son relationship? The first thing is that the son learns to be emotionally intelligent. Men, like I said at the beginning, have been trained to be emotionally toxic, to hide their emotions, to cage it. And that's not a healthy way of doing things at all. But the relationship between the mother and son helps this part of him find expression. He learns to be emotionally strong and independent. He's not emasculated, because if all he has is the mother-son relationship, he can't become emasculated. But the balance of this comes from the father-son relationship. So you can see how the different dynamics play. And one of the things I tell single parents is this: the simple fact that if you are a single mother, for example, and there's no father with you, when you understand what roles the father is to play, you begin to play it while also looking for a father figure. Because believe me, that father figure is as important, right? But in you stepping in to play that role, you help bridge that gap. He learns domestic activities in the home. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that why should men cook, or why should men go into the kitchen, or why should men do any of those domestic stuff? It's very simple. My answer is always very simple. I tell them that the social atmosphere of then is not the same as the social atmosphere of now. Back then, mothers did not go to work. The functions of mothers were to raise children who would farm. The more children you had, the more prosperous you are called. In present dispensation, the more children you have, the more poverty-stricken you will be, because the economy is not even in support of that anymore. That's one. Two, you hardly find a family where there is a sole breadwinner, there's a sole provider. It happens, but it's rare. Women are beginning to step up to assist financially as well. So that social atmosphere where the job was laid on women to stay at home and to be homemakers is no longer so now, because women are having to augment the income. Therefore, when this boy, this adolescent becomes a man in his own home, and he has not spent time with his mother to also understand domestic activities, he's going to be a bully to his wife. It's going to be painful to his wife. Nobody wants to go out and return and have to begin sweeping, begin cooking, begin cleaning, when there was someone at home who could have done it, who could have helped out. Now, I'm not saying that the entirety of the responsibility of cleaning the house, of working domestically is on the man or is on the woman. Different homes will figure out things for themselves. But a man needs to also learn domestic activities. In the university, for example, even while I was in school, I met a lot of males, a lot of guys who could do nothing in the kitchen. So they were having multiple girlfriends who would wash their clothes, the ones who would sweep their rooms, the ones who would cook for them. They were having all kinds of girlfriends for the purpose of handling domestic activities. You do not want to raise a boy to become a man who cannot cater to himself, who becomes that kind of irresponsible person simply because he has not learned this from the home. So he learns this mostly from the mother. He learns to be gentle while being a man. Now, from his father, he learns the art of becoming a man, taking leadership, being authoritative. But when he spends time with his mother, he learns that art of, in spite of his authority, knowing when to empathize, in spite of his authority, knowing when to lay it down and just be meek and gentle. Knowing that balance, he learns it. If he spends time with his mother and there's no father figure, all he will learn is how to be gentle, how to be, how to just be meek and all. He will not learn how to fight in the male world. And that's kind of like emasculation. So there's a balance. The father-son relationship and the mother-son relationship have two different roles to play in this son's life. That's what brings him into wholesomeness. Yeah. He also learns to respect women. This is something he learns from his mother. He watches how his father will do it. He sees it. And then in spending time with his mother, he understands how she feels when it is done to her. So when he has his own wife, he will understand how it feels whenever he's disrespectful, whenever he's a bully, if I should borrow that word. He would have understood. In his mind, he will always remember the day daddy hit mommy, the way she felt. I don't want my wife to feel that way. The day daddy hugged mommy, the way she felt. You see that? So he sees what his father is doing, will do it, but what further consolidates it is the fact that he can touch the emotions of his mother. And if you understand how emotions work well, memories are kept mostly because of how it made you feel. Sometimes you could see random things and they make no you don't recall why it's there because there was no emotional attachment to it. But for the things you were emotionally attached to, it doesn't matter when or where you see it, it triggers that emotion and then triggers the memory. So that's the major importance of the mother-son relationship. The part of feeling, how did it feel on my mother? He learns it. The part of doing, he learns it from his father. So, mother son action points. You can work together in the kitchen. And while working together, this is not a compulsion where you're saying, no, today you must work. This is actually a technique for you to engage your son. A beautiful technique where you are working together and you are conversing, making memories that will help him in the future. You go shopping together. I know it's mostly mother daughter who do this, and that's beautiful, but once in a while sons should also go with mother for grocery shopping. Like I said, it really helps. For example, when his wife is pregnant and cannot move around, would he force her to go shopping? Because he already understands how these things work, he will do just fine. He's going to let her be. So that balance to leadership in the home, the mother gives it to him. Right? Mother son action points also tell stories of growing up experiences. If he's on the football team, he's in the drama team, go watch his games as well. Those things touch the emotional aspect of your son. It is learned from the mother. Yeah, so this is also a true story. As a 4-year-old, Tom used to cling on to his mother at every possible chance. Fast forward by 10 years, he wouldn't want his mom to enter his room. Now, this is adolescence, very typical. And now, when he's 25, Tom wouldn't share his problems with his mother lest she gets worried. Isn't that so typical of sons? This shows you the relational dynamics, how it plays out. Recall what I said, that sometimes during adolescence, when you are trying to do all of these things, for many parents, sometimes you feel as if you are hitting a wall, but really don't give up. That's just because you're in a transitory phase. There's something I always say, that transitory phases are never easy. I mean, when you're transitioning from one place to another, you know how difficult it is. When you are trying to move from a low income earning job to a high income earning job, that period of transition is difficult, right? But you keep at it, because when you get there and then you look back, you see how important that transition period was. That's exactly what adolescence is. Adolescence is a transitory phase. Your child is moving from being a child to being an adult. So this child is not a child and this child is not an adult. This child is in transition. That's actually what's majorly responsible for that friction in adolescence. But when you have mastered the art of engaging their world, and you've mastered these relationship dynamics, even if sometimes it might look difficult, especially if you did not start this before they stepped into adolescence and you're just wanting to start now, even though it might look difficult, by the time he's 25 and above, he will look back, or she will look back, and those precepts and principles and memories you have built, you have laid, is what will transcend time. Tamara, what age will this thing start? Oh, my sons are 6 and 4. And then you mentioned a 4-year-old. I mean, there's really no late time. There's really no late time to begin these things. As when they begin to understand, you handle them based on their level of understanding. So for a 4-year-old, what will father and son do? Sometimes they can just take a stroll. Sometimes they can just play together in the sitting room, having father-son conversations, making memories. That's the most important part in all of this. It's that memory making. And that's why I'm leaving action points. Fathers, take your daughters out on dates. I mean, you should start taking your daughters out on dates as soon as they're 6 or 7. Even if it's just a picnic, father, son, where you are conversing with them, you are building memories. Memories that will help forge a solid relationship with them in future. Many times these things are not now. There are parents who are very fortunate, who will see the results immediately. There are parents who are that fortunate, but there are some who would have to exercise patience, but they will see it. It's non-negotiable. They will see it, right? So yeah. So what's the importance of the mother-daughter relationship? For a girl, her first role model, first best friend, first everything is her mother. And for a mother, the daughter is the reflection. That's one of the that's one of the major things in the mother-daughter, yeah, in the mother-daughter relationship. And then there's something called the enmeshed relationship. It's one of the most common types of relationships shared by mothers and daughters. And this is where there's a best friendish kind of relationship between them, where they share things with each other. Now, this is also very, 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 very important in the mother-daughter relationship. During adolescence, daughters get into a lot of trouble because they cannot speak with their parents, especially their mothers. Many times, this is where they get into relationships. So, the importance of the mother daughter relationship, building that bond, is so that your daughter will be able to trust you. I mean, oh, sorry, let me mute that. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. In the first webinar where I shared my story, one of the things I mentioned was my mom immediately found out that we were all drifting apart. So she stepped in and began to befriend us. Individually, she took her time, built a relationship with each of us. She didn't build a relationship first with the children together. She started with each of us, myself, my brothers, my sister. She took us one after the other and established her relationship. That's one of the beauty of these relationship matrix. Establishing those kinds of relationships is many times the difference between uh life threatening mistakes life threatening mistakes are not. These kinds of relationship are when a mother and a daughter, recently there's a thought leader in the wellness industry who spoke about how her mother was a narcissist. It greatly affected her because her first role model as a woman happened to be someone who was toxic. And so she had to go through a lot of therapy to come out of it, and eventually found a mother figure that could intercept and play that role of a mother. Yeah. So it's crucial that each of these relational dynamics are not left hanging. It is true that your mother and daughter can be best friends, but if there's a problem with mother and with father and daughter, it's still going to cause a gap. It's still going to cause a problem, right? So all aspects must be tended to. So mother-daughter action point, this is the one major question I'm asking. Can my daughter open up to me about anything
You
and
first.
everything? That's a question you should answer. If your answer is no, there is a problem. You need to understand how to engage her world and get her to open up to you. That's crucial. How do you intercept? How do you make her open up to you? You have to engage her world. That is non-negotiable. So for the action points for every mother here who has a daughter, this is the question you need to ask yourself. Can your daughter open up to you about anything? If your answer is no, then you really need to begin work on it. Because many times the relationships you build now isn't particularly for now. It's for the future. When you become old and gray, those memories and the relationships you've built is what will ensure that they don't neglect you. There are a lot of parents who are neglected in the old age, and that's because there's no emotional attachment. There's nothing in the heart of the child saying, oh, my mom, oh, my dad. There's nothing like that. This is where those memories are built. And then finally, like I said earlier, this is the goal, this middle, the parent-adolescent, this is the goal, where father and mother are in sync, and then together as parents are in sync with the adolescent. This is where wholesomeness happens. If you've taken the course, you'll understand that there are 8 dimensions of wellness, and each of those dimensions of wellness were well spelled out, and how to measure them were also included. The goal is this black spot, because that is when your child will step into wholesomeness. And there's also a catch. There's something I always say. Parenting is a beautiful opportunity for parents themselves to evolve, to become better people. Parenting gives you that opportunity to grow into a higher version of yourself. So when this portion, this black spot, this synchrony is attained, both father and mother and adolescent will all have ascended into a higher version of themselves. They would have grown. This father would have grown into someone who can mentor other fathers. This mother would have grown into a mother who can mentor other mothers. This adolescent will grow into an adolescent who can mentor other adolescents. So it becomes a family who's also trying to redefine their community because they themselves have gotten it. So in summary, this is the parent-adolescent matrix. This is the goal. And with that, I end this webinar. And questions, if there are questions for me, please just unmute yourself and ask me questions. I had promised myself that I wasn't going to keep anybody beyond 8:30. I'm happy that I'm still within time. So, any questions for me? And yeah, on your screen, engaging the world of adolescence, the second cohort will be starting in the month of August. If you've not registered, I encourage you to, believe me, I encourage you to. It is worth your time, your resources, it is worth everything. So, any questions? Any questions for me? Okay, the chat. Oh, thank you so much, Grace. Thank you so much. And then please, I would like you to help us fill the feedback form so that we can serve you better. For the first webinar, one of the feedback was I was too fast and there was no room for questions, and that I should learn to mute people. So by the second webinar, I was able to master the art of muting people. So your feedback is what will help us to do better, be better, become better, to serve you better. So please help fill the feedback form. And I really, really, really do want to have questions. I did my best to ensure we don't take time today at all so that I can entertain as much questions as possible. Even though we are currently working on having a question and answer segment soon, as soon as it's ready, we'll let you know. So any question at all? Nobody? No question? Did you understand everything I said, or now I'm scared? Any questions for me, please? I want to have questions. Nobody wants to ask me any question. Okay, the chat. Amazing presentation to see that. But thank you so much, Mido. I am so grateful. Mrs. Bukola, thank you so much. That's one of our students. Very proud of her. She's doing amazing. Okay, if there are no questions, I will just. Okay, so please, the feedback form, please help us fill it. And if you have any questions, maybe you want to ask me questions privately, this is a WhatsApp number. Yes. And if you want to mail me, this is it. And for those asking, the early bird registration ends by the end of the month. By the month of August, it will have to revert to the original price. And then we also have payment plans tailored to suit your specific needs. So if you have more questions about that, you can reach me on any of those platforms, either by sending a WhatsApp message, a call, a text message, or an email, and we will respond to you. With that, I say good night. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Do have a lovely evening. And to our Muslim parents here, again, happy celebrations. Even though I did not get any meat, all my friends are no longer in the country, so I didn't get any meat. So if you have meat for me, I'm very available. Happy celebrations. Do have a lovely night rest.